Hello, everyone. This is Adam Meister, the Bitcoin Meister, the Disrupt Meister. Welcome to This Week in Bitcoin. Today is May the 10th, 2019. Strong hand, offended by selling, be a unique beast. This is an anti-FUD Friday. Value your wealth in Bitcoin, unconfiscatable. All right, special guest Simon Dixon is here on This Week in Bitcoin. We're going to review like the last month, basically. There have been so many stories, and we're going to get his unique take on everything. Simon, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Adam. I don't even know if we could review a month. You only need a couple of days in crypto, and you've got enough content.
Very true. As the world turns, it's a soap opera here sometimes. So many different stories. But let's start with this one tweet that will shock some people because it's from someone that it's from Vinny Lingham. If Bitcoin can hold the $6,200 level for the next 24 to 48 hours, then the bear market is officially over and I'm going to become a raging bull. That's from Vinny Lingham. He's about to become a raging bull, apparently. Now, I don't care about the fiat price, but the reason I bring this up is because the vibe, the crypto vibe that has been out there. We've encountered some stories that were FUD-related stories. There was a hack. There was the Tether stuff, and it can't bring Bitcoin down. And I have heard, and again, that's why I'm bringing this up to you, the vibe has changed, it seems like. People who were bears seem to be getting bullish. What's your take? Have you talked to a lot of people? Has the vibe changed?
I think everybody's optimistic, but they're also scared because they've been optimistic a few times for the last year and a half and they got burned. So, those trying to forecast the short-term price, they're quietly, they'd love it to continue, but they don't want to get egg on their face again. Because for many people, this bear market went on for a lot longer than they thought it would do. For others, it was in line with expectations. Vinny Lingham's an interesting one because Vinny Lingham has always been ultra conservative. I think he's had some really good calls in the past, but one of his very famous calls was to sell Bitcoin at $1,000 just before the $20,000 run. Vinny is an old school Bitcoiner. He's recently, had some controversial views, but he always says what he thinks it is. And if he's saying that he thinks we're headed to a bull market, if we can hold this for the next 24 to 48 hours, wait
a second.
No reason why we shouldn't be in a bull market, really. We've had the extended bear market. We're getting a bad.
Yeah, a little bit of a bad connect. The last 30 seconds of your beautiful speech got cut off there, basically. Okay,
yeah, we'll try again. There's no reason why we shouldn't be moving into a bear market. A bull market now. I guess we're so used to the bear market. But I think there's been a lot of capitulation. A lot of the crap has left the industry. I'm starting to see a lot of the crap come back to the industry. I got my first email for a long time pitching some new ICOs. And I guess that's kind of a sign that everything's coming back. We had the IEO, the exchanges, the crypto to crypto exchanges try and turn around the market with IEOs as well. And Bitcoin seems to be leading the market again, and everything seems to follow Bitcoin. It'll be interesting to see what happens next, whether people start dumping alternatives in order to go into Bitcoin, or whether people start feeling richer as a result of Bitcoin going up and start to speculate again in alternatives. I know some people are waiting they don't believe that the bull market is here until Bitcoin goes up and everything else goes down. But I think we're in a correlated market where everything's going to move together with Bitcoin leading the way as the leader, as the world reserve current cryptocurrency for all other cryptocurrencies.
Do you even follow the Bitcoin dominance? I just noticed today that, it's getting close to 60%.
That's interesting. No, I haven't really been following that because it's a silly figure for me to follow because Bitcoin is the only game in town for being sound money, and every single day, especially with things like securities tokens coming along, we're going to be adding thousands and thousands and thousands of different asset classes to this industry as everything gets tokenized. And it's a really silly thing to do, to compare this ever increasing basket of different assets that are going to be tokenized in the future to the world reserve cryptocurrency of cryptocurrencies. It doesn't really matter, because anyone can create a token and they can print billions and billions of them, and as long as it's got a price, then that's going to decrease the Bitcoin dominance just by adding loads and loads of tokens. So it really is a silly number, but it gives people some interesting thoughts, and it's good to see. If you were just comparing cryptocurrencies, then fine. But when CoinMarketCap consists of all this basket of different things, it's a pretty meaningless figure.
Yeah, someone asked me the other day, they're like, well, during the next bull run, will Bitcoin return to 80% dominance? And I said, no, just because of what you just said. As long as they list every IEO, ICO, EIEIO on there, it's going to water down the what is really a coin and what is not. Again, it's the world reserve crypto. It's on a whole different level. I do want your take on IEOs though. Just a flash in the pan, or will that trend grow?
Well, again, it goes back to the old security versus utility token argument. The argument hasn't been resolved. I guess in the US, they've made it a lot clear. The SEC has put out clear guidelines on what is a security and what isn't a security, but still some murky water there, as more of these things that look like securities are also being used for payments and various other things. So the IEO is just essentially a rebrand of the ICO, but you don't have to cover the marketing costs because the exchange will just do it for you. I guess it's the exchange's attempt to revive the market and get back to some of those ultra profitable, ultra high returns. I think it's I guess you move the ability for individuals to scam to the exchange to use market manipulation and behavior, and we'll see who the exchanges are that do things in a fair way, do proper due diligence, and I guess they're moving closer and closer to enforcement action and securities laws as they move more and more into these markets. But it's another interesting trend. It's another way of getting a new token out there, but it's subject to a lot more manipulation because even on these, you're subject to a token, people buying a token with another token, and all the manipulation that can happen in trying to price it. An investment bank is not normally the same in the traditional market. The investment bank is not normally the stock exchange as well, and not the broker as well. But in the IEO market, you have all three being one centralized counterparty as well.
Pound that like button, everyone. Remember, new show every day here, This Week in Bitcoin, every Friday. Simon's info is below. Everything is linked to below. Well, I want to go back to IEOs again, because it appears to me it's a way for some of these exchanges to, increase their wealth. Basically, they saw that old trend of ICOs. Why not rebrand it and get a huge cut out of this the next bull market? And it's some of these exchanges, they seem like they want to power. They've got some interesting views on power in the space, and that I bring that up because of what's happened at Binance. Now, Binance got hacked. We'll talk specifically about the hack, but I wanted to bring up like what the guy in charge of Binance he said he seriously was considering a rollback and thought that was actually possible. And I'm glad the lesson we learned is that there, at least in Bitcoin, you don't have a powerful entity that just can can just do that. But what was your take on that?
Firstly, Binance and CZ, I think up to now, like CZ has been a good part of the crypto community. He tends to try and do right by his customers. He tends to go on the cutting edge of the gray markets and push the boundaries a lot. But in this instance, I'm either going to put it down to the fact that he was up for probably over 48 hours or 29 hours or something, trying to recover and make sense of the hack situation. And either had a momentary, lapse of craziness and insanity, or he just genuinely doesn't understand Bitcoin, which I find hard to believe as somebody that is such a crypto ambassador and has been around for a while. Before Binance, he was at OKX and other exchanges. But to think that it was even a sensible thing to explore, that you could reorg the Bitcoin blockchain, if it was possible to do that, then it would completely diminish the value that we know Bitcoin has. And secondly, I don't know what was going through his mind, why he did actually contact Jihan Wu and other people to find out if he could get enough hash power to actually reorg the chain, which would take the entire Bitcoin and crypto market down with it if it was possible, with Binance. It seems like I just want to put it down to a moment of insanity in an incredibly high pressured situation where he was suffering from a lack of sleep. And that cut off some oxygen to his brain. That's the only way I can explain it, because I don't think he's that ignorant to know that that's not a good idea or not possible.
Wow. Well, I will say this: people tried to jump on that FUD, but it didn't. Bitcoin just laughed it off, and back if we would have done this show 3 years ago and said like one of the biggest exchanges just got hacked, I mean, everyone would be in panic mode. It's just. I think a positive take from this story is how the space has matured, and that we've had FUD Fridays in the past, and now this is an anti-FUD Friday. I mean, there will be big stories in the future, but will they be able to take the Bitcoin price down as much as in the past? What's your take on the maturation of the market?
Yeah, I mean, what we're seeing right now, and a real positive step forward, is that Bitcoin is bigger than exchanges. We started this industry where Mt. Gox was bigger than Bitcoin, and over time we've proven time and time again, no matter how good, no matter how meticulous, there's only, I guess, there's one exchange left that hasn't been hacked to this stage, which is Coinbase. But no matter how far you go, no matter how good you are, putting together that amount of money in cryptocurrency is just an extremely hard challenge to secure. But the good thing is that Binance currently, by volume, is the largest cryptocurrency exchange in the world. They just got hacked. I hope they get recovered. They had a conservative approach of putting money aside so that they could cover it. So it's a hit to the company rather than depositors or the exchange customers. So that's a good thing, and sorry for your losses, Binance. I don't wish that upon anybody. But the good thing is that Bitcoin is totally bigger than the largest cryptocurrency exchange in the world right now, because the top two ones have had some extremely challenging times over the last week or so, and Bitcoin continues to just fight it off and continue, and is not correlated to the news of what is happening within these exchanges. I think there's a few reasons for it. One, we've got the next generation of exchanges with traditional financial institutions, which will have, very high fiduciary responsibilities in terms of securing assets to the next level. And also just in general, a lot more people having learned the lesson that you shouldn't be storing your cryptocurrency on exchanges. And also the fact that we're just, we seem to be having, the amount of good news that we've had in terms of technological development, institutional development, partnerships, people using cryptocurrency, people using Bitcoin during this bear market. And none of that has really, pushed the price out of the bull market. There's just a tremendous amount of news and progress that's just not factored into the price at this stage, that people will start to realize, I guess, when it hits new highs and starts pushing above the 20,000, when people will start looking at this again.
Well, I will say this: we were talking at the beginning of the show. You were talking about the length of the bear market, and now I don't like to talk about fiat prices, but we're on the other side of 6,000 now, and it was just less than 6 months ago, just less than 6 months, Bitcoin went below 6,000. So, I mean, it's not that. For me, I obviously do nothing. I just store my Bitcoin. It's no big deal. Yeah, and back in November, it was 6,000. It's still 6,000 today. And just the mistakes that people could made in between these.
Well, the interesting thing is if you look what drove Bitcoin below 6,000 the last time, was Craig Wright coming out threatening to reorg the Bitcoin Cash blockchain and perform a 51% attack, and creating, a scenario that crashed the Bitcoin market because there was so much fear, FUD, and uncertainty around that. Now somebody else comes along and does it, who has a lot more power and a lot more influence, like the largest cryptocurrency exchange in the world, and then said that they're going to see if they can do that to Bitcoin after a hack. And Bitcoin just pushes past 6,000. So it's really interesting that this 6,000 level seems to be coming around. Threats of people that claim to either create Bitcoin or be an exchange that has more power than Bitcoin seems to be marking these price points.
Going back to that November incident, I thought that it played a role in sparking the price going down. But I mean, how big of a role do you think that really played? I mean, in the long, I mean, it didn't keep the price down for that long because of him creating that FUD. I think it was a very opportune moment and I don't know if he planned it that way either. It was an opportune moment to bring up FUD if you wanted to bring down Bitcoin. I think it was going to go down anyway. The overall vibe. I mean, do you think it was that big of an event?
I think, I think it got a lot of attention from ignorant people and mainstream media. That where people, you got to remember, people aren't day in day out understanding the difference between these cryptocurrencies. When someone comes out that allegedly is the creator of Bitcoin. And says that that allegedly has over 1 million Bitcoin and is going to reorg the chain, even though it was Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin SV and things completely unrelated to Bitcoin. I think the average person trying to deconstruct what that actually means led to a media frenzy of ignorant people that are already pained because they might have bought Bitcoin a lot significantly higher price. Wanting to say, hey, a capitulation stage, essentially, where mass selling from people that are on exchanges, not the hodlers of last resort, the ones that are holding it on their cold wallets, no matter what, that are following this day in, day out. But the people on the exchanges that are actually, the price is determined by people buying and selling on exchanges. There's a lot of ignorance out there. And I think it was just really the capitulation event of, is Bitcoin dead? Is Bitcoin over? Oh, great! This alleged founder of Bitcoin is now creating this thing that's going to completely kill some alternative chain that's also called Bitcoin. Just creates this mass confusion of affecting the price at the exchanges.
Now, let's talk about some altcoins. This is the altcoin section of the show, now that dude was brought up. And we're going to bring up something specific about that guy in a second. But do you think, the hackers of the world, it seems like they've caught on that if they're going to hack an exchange, you get Bitcoin because it can't be reorged. Do you think in the future that altcoins will be hacked from exchanges, that it'll be worth a hacker's time? Because most likely, now that it's out in the open, some of those altcoins might just, they'll always be the threat that they could be reorged and the hacker could have his funds taken back from him. What do you see in the future of crypto hacks?
Very interesting. I hadn't even thought about that process, but yeah, it seems like people are, if it might even occur. The game with hacking was always, even if you're hacking an altcoin, you're still going to try and get it to Bitcoin. In the end anyway. And then they've got to try and figure out how to get that Bitcoin into what they can spend. And so it's an interesting game. Half of the game is hacking the Bitcoin in the first place, but then trying to move that from a wallet and figure out how to get it out and do something with it is becoming increasingly more challenged. So all it ends up doing is taking Bitcoin out of the supply, and making it more rare and more scarce, which eventually, once people realize, is that they're just taking Bitcoin out of the supply because people are really analyzing these chains now and trying to get those hacked Bitcoins through an exchange which is under increasing regulatory pressure, and are getting smarter and smarter and using more and more tools in order to actually identify stopping these thefts, is becoming a really, really hard challenge. And many of the major hacks, the coins are still there with no one able to do anything with them.
Here's a question about the Binance hack specifically, and from what you've heard, and I just want to, maybe this is not going to clear everything up. There are a few people that are like, it must have been an inside job. What have you? Do you think it wasn't an inside job?
Well, inside job kind of comes to a couple of accusations. The first accusation is the people at the top that own and operate the exchange. Then maybe they, do an inside job. I find that highly implausible. I've got no reason to believe that CZ and the team at Binance are nothing but trying to do right by their customers. If you're in that big a game, then it's really, really a crazy strategy to try and, Binance is on a huge growth path. To kill the golden egg, is a little bit crazy. But then there is the fact that a company, has to employ, and especially when they get as big as a company like Binance, hundreds and hundreds of staff, and those hundreds and hundreds of staff are very, very, it's increasingly harder to actually surveil those staff, and you could end up hiring a bad actor, and a bad actor could sell some data. And so it really comes down to their operational procedures and security procedures on exactly how they onboard new staff, which people have access to which information. It's an incredibly challenging thing, operationally, especially if you start an exchange in 2017 and grew to be one of the largest cryptocurrency exchanges in the world, especially during a frenzied bull market like 2017. It's a very, very hard thing to do. So an inside job can happen from the top or within. I find it implausible that in Binance that it would happen at the top. Very possible that something can happen in the middle level, cooperating with a hacker. That's a very challenging thing to prevent. And really, the only way to solve these things is for us to develop this industry to the next stage where these are, non-custodial exchanges in the future. And Binance is already on that path to creating a decentralized exchange and doing this in a non-custodial way. So we don't have to put that responsibility on some of these centralized exchanges.
Yeah, I just want to make it clear. A high-level inside job, that's an exit scam. No way that's happening here. I thought like what you basically said. They have so many low-level employees. Why wouldn't one make a deal with a hacker and give out some information? And what you just said, again, should be a reminder to everyone, who thinks Coinbase is so safe. I'm sure Coinbase is so safe. But wait, how about if they did hire a guy who had some long-term thinking, is like, I'm going to work here for a year. I'm going to collaborate with someone on the outside. And, after a year or so, I'm going to know the inner workings, and we're going to rip this place off, and we're going to move to Eastern Europe, and they'll never be able to catch us. That seems like a legitimate threat. And to trust Coinbase to do a background check that will eliminate the possibility of that, that's a lot of trust right there. And that's not what crypto is about. So just a reminder out there that there's really no way to stop a very determined low-level inside jobber from doing something like this. I'm glad you brought up the difference between a high level and a low level with that. So I want to also read from the super chat. Colonel Swan Jr. said, "Bitcoin, the blocks keep coming." Thank you, Colonel Swan Jr., for the super chat, for the donation. I appreciate the $10. And here, Molotov Cocktail sent $3. Thank you much. He says, "Insert Jack Nicholson nodding meme." Yeah, that's a good time to do that. That's a good picture of him. I've seen that floating around. All right. Let's talk about real fast. Since you brought it up, Simon. Well, you didn't bring this specific thing up, but this week, I guess in the last 2 days, Jameson Lopp came out with a expose about the guy who claims he is Satoshi. Did you have any thoughts on that?
Oh, fill me in. It's been such a crazy week. I've been
Oh,
on
good,
this.
good. So you haven't.
I've been on
you.
this.
That's good. You haven't heard of it. That makes me happy. Then
Yeah, I've been on this whole Bitfinex tether thing all week.
Good.
So what's happening?
Yeah, it's just it's just more. I don't want to give the guy any more attention. That's it. It's just more evidence that he's not who he says he is. It's become. I just wonder why people, or maybe you have some experience with human psychology, why there's still people out there that want to believe that this person is Satoshi Nakamoto.
Well, there's no doubt that, it's an interesting one, because there's no doubt in my mind that he was around at the beginning. And so whether he was a T-boy, that was around at the beginning, but there's really good evidence that he was around, and he's been around for a long time. Now combine that with narcissism and sociopathic tendencies, and you get the current situation. It was really funny. I did watch I try not to indulge myself in soap operas, and in the UK we've got something called EastEnders and Coronation Street. That's what I see this whole Craig White saga is. You can't help being intrigued by it, and if you want a bit of entertainment, then you indulge yourself every now and then. But I watched one on CoinGeek with Calvin Ayre giving, there's a video he just released, an interview. And it is just fascinating how people, are getting around this belief, I guess, that and the importance that they're placing on him being Satoshi. It's just it's soap opera, it's just a bit of entertainment on the side. It doesn't matter. Bitcoin still continues. We just have this constant interesting thing. I think the latest is he's trying to use the court cases in order to prove that he is Satoshi, by getting a court judgment to prove that he is, and that was the whole point with the legal cases. So let's see what comes from that.
Yeah. So Jameson Lopp did an expose. If you want to waste a few moments of your life reading that and get a little bit of an entertainment hit, do so, but no rush, because as you said, you are a very busy man and you have been dealing with a lot. So let's hear about this Bitfinex stuff. I think you were referring to that, I assume.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, the story with Bitfinex. Bitfinex is obviously the world's crypto favorite company to attack, whether it be from regulators or whether it be from people trying to understand it a bit more. But I was on CNBC yesterday or the other night, and they were asking me from the perspective of, as I've said previously, I've disclosed on your previous show, Adam, I am a shareholder. At banktothefuture.com, we create a market where people can buy and sell shares in large companies, and Bitfinex is one of those companies. So we had a lot of speculation on the price of Bitfinex shares over the last week, which really has been getting a lot of increasing attention. So the story is that Bitfinex was one of the most liquid, and still is, US dollar to Bitcoin exchanges. And several years back, Wells Fargo took it upon itself to attack not Bitfinex itself, but the counterparty banks that were servicing Bitfinex, and try and exercise influence over the US dollar, because Tether was starting to become increasingly more important, and in competing with people converting their cryptocurrency into dollar, and they were just staying in it with Tether. And so they decided to attack some of the Taiwanese banks that were servicing Bitfinex and allowing for a non-US model to exist, where the founders of Bitfinex, from all my experiences of knowing them, they are very idealistic in terms of Bitcoin principles and privacy, and they do not they don't want to exercise one more bit of compliance above what they have to in the jurisdiction that they live. And because of that, they're a constant target by banks and financial institutions and people that don't want business to be going outside the US, particularly when it's denominated in the dollar. So they end up in a scenario where they're playing, catch the hot potato with billions and billions of dollars. All these crypto to crypto exchanges become huge really, really fast. Binance becomes huge, not, because they are relying upon Bitfinex to service all of their deposits because they use Tether instead of having to get a bank account and meet all the demands of bankers. So Bitfinex through Tether became essentially the outsourced bank account to all of the crypto to crypto exchanges. And Tether went from billions to billions. And now once a bank says that you need to move your deposits because Wells Fargo and the Fed are threatening to remove US dollar clearing and exercising their influence over Taiwanese banks, then it's quite hard to move $4 billion. So they've had to go through this game of trying to get banks that are willing to take such a model on in an incredibly threatening environment. One of their last solutions was that they managed to find a bank that would park all the money that wasn't demanded for deposits and withdrawals and find a payment processor that had good technology whereby you could process deposits and withdrawals in a faster environment. Many of the exchanges were using the same payment processor, but one of the US banks decided to actually start servicing companies like Kraken and Coinbase and all the other exchanges, but they don't want to service non-US based exchanges that don't necessarily adhere to every single regulation that the US puts a crypto exchange under and doesn't allow for some additional protections of privacy in the crypto to crypto sphere. And so because of this, they end up in this scenario where they had to put the equivalent of their, remember in cryptocurrency world, exchanges have hot wallets and cold wallets. When you're the banker of all of the cryptocurrency exchanges, which Tether was, all of these exchanges came through because of Tether, they have to use a payment processor that has good technology. And it turned out that that payment processor was a company called Crypto Capital. And that Crypto Capital is allegedly, pocketing some of the money or has had some of the money seized because they haven't followed correct KYC or payment, procedures. By, part of it allegedly is the US government. Several governments seized the money. And Bitfinex finds itself in a scenario where, because of this scenario, because of all this, they've got to plug an $850 million gap because the government has seized some funds. Remember, about 700 million of Tether is held in Binance's wallet. So a big chunk of that is all of these companies that are grown because they outsource their banking to Tether. And this is, as usual, Bitfinex used some financial engineering in order to try and keep the system going. They were approached by the New York Attorney General's office, and they said that they shared all the information, and then the New York Attorney General's office used that information against them in what looks like another attack against the Tether and crypto market. This creates a massive, massive knock-on effect where they had to, the money is there in crypto capital. It's been seized by a government. And so they have to do a bit of financial engineering in order to fulfill the deposits and withdrawals. This whole saga continues. Now, in order to get out of this situation, they launch a token, and they raise they're in the process of raising $1 billion from big fans that want to see that believe in the utility of Tether, particularly in areas like China and Asia, where they really appreciate the ability to hold some of their funds in US dollars without having to have a US dollar account. And they're particularly interested in funding and keeping, plugging this. And so they create a token. And now we're in the situation where we're trying to figure out crypto capital, what's happened to them. And there's some systemic risk on that because all the crypto to crypto exchanges are relying upon Tether for their growth. And but the funds are, allegedly there, and they're just waiting to be returned. And then when those funds are returned, the token can be bought back. And they have no choice but to use some token ecosystem in order to meet the demands of depositors and withdrawals and keep the system keep everything going. So it's an incredibly interesting story, but it highlights one thing really to me, and that is that the issue is a banking issue. And we have issues with the banking system. That's the exact reason why Bitcoin was created. And Bitfinex, from my perspective, have always been a team of people that do whatever they can to service their customers, to not go over compliant, and keep some of the principles of Bitcoin alive in a centralized environment when people want to exchange dollars for dollars for Bitcoin, and trades when that constant intersection between the fiat world and the crypto world.
Now, there's the story, people. It is just one exchange, and it didn't bring down Bitcoin. And yeah, this is the problem. It exposes or reminds us of the problems of the banking system and why we're in crypto to begin with. Now, you bring up the New York Attorney General's office. I've got questions about that. I mean, is this a witch hunt? Are they doing this for other entities, for competing banks? I'm not a fan of the New York Attorney General's office. It seems like they're a very vindictive outfit, and they go after entities and people they don't like, and that's not what justice is. That's not what the law is supposed to be about. It's not supposed to be about I'm doing a favor for someone because my friend doesn't like this entity. What do you think's going on over there, or do you have any thoughts?
I have my own thoughts, it's speculation. I've got no evidence around this, but it wouldn't be out of the world to conceive that New York represents Wall Street. Tether is the antithesis of Wall Street and the US. The US has come around to the fact that crypto is going to be huge. We've already. So I think the next thing you're talking about, some comments around politicians and MPs that, MPs, Congress people in the States that are recognizing the threat that Bitcoin has, and then stable coins along and produce another threat. And that needs to stay in the US. They want all that to be done in the US by Wall Street. They want JP Morgan coin. They want Fed coin. They want Bitcoin to be something that is controlled within their borders. They recognize that they can't take it down anymore. And one of the threats to the dominance that they would like to exercise and the influence they would like to exercise is taking down anything outside the US. And to me, it seems like this is not just about consumer protection. You can take either side. There is a case for how they were trying to protect consumers. Nobody's investing in Tether. There is no investor protection. It was people that were using Tether, so that's consumer protection, which is different to securities laws and what they were trying to influence and about disclosures and things. But to me, it certainly seems like a group of government institutions sees some funds. They ask Bitfinex to cooperate. They cooperate, and then they use that data in order to use to make a massive hoo-ha against them. And then I don't know what exactly where it happens next, but there's no doubt about it. It's New York. New York represents Wall Street. Wall Street represents JP Morgan. JP Morgan represents JP Morgan coin. Just follow the money.
Yeah. There we go, people. That's an interesting theory out there. Pound that like button, everyone. So you brought it up. I was going to bring it up. This is a good segue. Today in Congress, I guess this was yesterday. Today in Congress, Representative Sherman called for a bill to ban all cryptocurrencies. I linked to that below. And the guy in his little rant, in 90-second rant, whatever it was, he actually brings up some good points about the Bitcoin, about what it really does, that you can get around U.S. sanctions and you can get around taxes, and he doesn't like that very much. And he clearly is representing some entities, be it the federal government that wants their taxes, being the federal government that wants to enforce. He admits that the dollar is power. He admits it in it. So he's a jerk. Obviously, he doesn't, but he straight up says it. So I thought it was bullish, and I think people should take it at face value and say, there are some people that want to stop it, but you can't stop it. And he gives some examples of why it is valuable. So what was your take on that whole spiel?
Firstly, the crypto and Bitcoin, there's some ignorant comments in there, obviously. But there's also some intelligent comments in there because actually it is a threat. It is a challenge, and it does give people, choice, an exit from the traditional financial system. It regulates the regulator, and it prevents, in the end, I think it makes fiat currencies more honest because they have to compete with something, people having the choice of where to go. Another point in that, there are some ignorant comments. Actually, Bitcoin is a really, really bad way of avoiding taxes because as soon as you actually try to spend that or you have to exchange it to fiat, then you have a connection of your identity to your wallet address. And that is an immutable record that the tax authorities in the future will continue to use in order to create a cash grab. But one thing that does have incredible value is that you can do that completely legally as opposed to illegally. And that is that Bitcoin encourages people to save because the economics are designed to reward the saver over the long term because it is sound money and it does have a fixed supply and it is getting more and more useful every day to more and more people. And so therefore, by not spending it, by saving it, then you are not creating any kind of taxable event. This is not tax advice. I don't know what the tax situation is in your country, but all the countries that I've understood the tax situation is that if you don't sell it, then you're not going to pay a capital gains. It encourages you to save while your traditional money is being spent at a loss because it encourages you to take on debt and credit cards, and therefore you don't necessarily have taxable events. So the fact is, I think that it's not that it allows people to do tax evasion illegally, it's that it actually stops people paying taxes legally because people are actually saving it, and they can become incredibly wealthy over the long term, and then they can decide with that wealth where they want to go, where they want to reside, and use some tax efficiency when they actually, decide to liquidate or spend that money on something else in a local country. And that is completely legal and a very, very challenging thing for governments to get their heads around, and exactly why they want to keep everything within their own banking system, survey and control everything and get people to take on debt and spend so that they can create these taxable events. They don't want you to save. The existing system discourages savings. It's a very stupid thing to do, to save in fiat money. And crypto and Bitcoin is creating this tidal wave of savers. And that is a big problem to the government agenda that might not necessarily have your best interest in mind.
Yeah, very good point. Tidal wave of savers. But right now, I think it's a trickle because some people still don't get it. That's why these exchanges are so popular. People just use it as a gambling tool to go in and out of alts and to make more dollars. They don't get it. It's for savings, dude. It is.
If you're trading crypto and you think you are going to get away with not paying taxes, you're going to be in a tricky situation in the future. All of that data is saved on the exchange. All those exchanges will be subpoenaed for that data at some point. And when they connect your identity to a wallet address, they're going to go right back to the history of that. And you might find yourself in a very tricky situation depending on where the tidal wave goes. So it is not a tool. It's not a good tool for tax evasion, but it is if you do it legally.
Exactly. Save people. Strong hand, long-term thinking. All right. Now, you talked about Bitcoin becoming more useful. I agree. It's definitely becoming more useful. Now, in this era, today we brought up a lot of companies that are involved in the crypto space. Some controversial, some not so controversial. Do you think on this date, May the 10th of 2019, that the Google or the Facebook or the Twitter of crypto already exists and we just don't know it yet? Or have they not even been created yet? Because in terms of the internet revolution, we had that .com bubble back in the day, but there was no Twitter yet then. There was no Facebook yet. That was before those were even thought of. So where are we in the process? Do you think it's possible that the Facebook of crypto is already out there, that the Twitter of crypto is already out there, or have they yet to even be thought of? Or both?
This gives me a really good segue to, and this wasn't planned. I hadn't spoke about this with Adam, but it gives me a really good segue to shill some of the things that we're up to in a self-interested way. So at banktothefuture.com, we've launched a secondary market whereby people can buy and sell shares in the largest companies in crypto through one of our special company structures. And so we're starting to see real market-driven valuations of some of the largest companies in crypto now. Some of those, like Coinbase, are driving a valuation of about 8.3 billion. Some of those, like a Kraken, are about 4 billion. Others, like Bitstamp, exited at about $500 million. And then Bitfinex has had some volatile valuations as a result of the market pricing on that. But this is really something that we're really interested in driving now. The fact that we now have market prices for many of these companies, and people can decide whether they're the next Facebook or Google, and they can decide whether, and they can benefit from that if they come. So we are seeing unicorns. We have seen companies fail, and we are seeing, and there will be more companies that come along, we now have a marketplace and pricing for some of these companies. It's currently in beta, so we're not making a big splash about it. But some of those you can now trade Circle, Bitfinex, Coinbase, and we've got other companies and most of the larger companies in crypto where people can see some real-time pricing and speculate on that.
Very interesting. Good answer there. No, we didn't plan that in advance at all, which is awesome. But okay, so who knows? They might be out there, and maybe Simon is helping fund them. We do not know. What do you think is back in the day? I think it was pretty predictable in terms of the internet that if you were going to master search and if you were going to be the biggest search engine, you were going to be a long-lasting, powerful entity. And Google became that and much, much more. What do you think is a recipe for success in the crypto space?
I think there's so many. Clearly, the hardware wallets is going to be a really, really important industry. I would certainly be betting on hardware wallets. I wish that, we were going to, I'm so gutted about this. We were an early investor in Ledger, and so an institution invested at the same round, and they didn't want us in, so they kicked us out. And I'm really gutted that we missed that one. But hardware wallets are a really important industry. Exchanges are the elephant in the room. People are going to want to trade those. And you've got also, eventually we're going to have, non-custodial exchanges. That's the real early speculation that I believe will eventually be a very big industry. Centralized exchanges clearly are the winners at the moment. I think hardware wallets is a really important part of the ecosystem. Someone's going to be doing all this mining. Someone's going to be producing these chips and these ASICs and hardware more efficiently in the future. So there's so many different areas. And then you've got things like as proof of stake comes through, you've got definitely custodial services for all the people that want to hold it in a centralized way. There's so many different parts of this ecosystem, and we're just really, really early on, and there's just so much growth as this market grows.
Let's talk about that proof of stake. How big is that going to be? These custodial services supposedly holding your coins and staking them for you. I mean, again, this is not Bitcoin at all. This is going to be Ethereum, probably.
Yeah, I mean, the institutions want the institutions want returns. There is no yield. Bonds are dead. Stocks are not producing the returns that they want. Gold is more of a store of value than investment. And people are looking for different ways to get yield in the current market. One of those new ways of getting yield, and the way you could do it through an institution, is some of these staking coins. And they are going to be things that people are looking for as a way to do that. And there's going to be a whole custodial industry built around that. There's going to be a whole decentralized industry built around that. And there's no doubt about it that this is going to be an important and interesting asset class in the future.
Yeah, well, I guess eventually the real big boys are going to get into that staking thing. Right now, it's like exchanges and entities that are just totally crypto related. Because they would know how to do that better than anyone. But I guess, Fidelity, all those people do something like that too one day.
Yeah, Fidelity are they're in this market in a big way. They've been in it for a while. I've spoken to some of the people that are in the cryptocurrency department and some of the behind the scenes conversations. Right now, it took them 3 years to put together a Bitcoin solution. They've got trillion-dollar reputations on the line. They take their fiduciary duties very, very, very seriously. This isn't Mount Gox. They've got a serious amount on the line. They are becoming comfortable now with Bitcoin. They think that Bitcoin's the only thing they're comfortable working with. But certainly when they see how much money they're going to make out of providing such services for Bitcoin, they're going to want to follow another approach, just like they did in their traditional business, and expand the suite of products. And they're definitely going to be wanting in a big way, and then that brings in all the other people that want to compete and do stuff as well.
You bring up Fidelity taking their time because they're a responsible institution. Do you think the other institutions are also very much just being very careful because they want to do it the right way? But at the same time, is there a rush to get in before the halving? Do you think they even know about that?
Oh, I think the people at these institutions, they got significant resources to research. They're not ignorant. Some of the people like the Congress people that are making stupid comments, they're obviously very ignorant. But these financial institutions, they're smart. They've got a lot of resources. Fidelity has decided to be one of the first movers. We got cryptocurrency exchanges from ICE and New York Stock Exchange, NASDAQ, everything coming through. All the big players are getting ready to go. The next bull market is just going to be a very different market altogether. You got every central bank, every financial institution, every retail bank, every Fortune 500 company, every FTSE 100, every Tokyo. They're all playing. They're all dabbling. I think there has been so much accumulation from retail over to institutional. And then, they're just waiting. They're just waiting aside, but that sucks out the supply, makes it more scarce. There's definitely going to be an institutional market that is currently being built, and it's getting bigger and bigger.
Yeah, well, people are asking, why is the price going up? Well, it's probably because some entity out there or number of entities are accumulating. And one day it's going to be pretty obvious that we'll be able to figure it out. We'll be able to go back in time and be like, oh, that's when they were buying it all up. And once people realize how much is like not out there to buy anymore, and that'll partially it'll be revealed after the halving, because not as many new ones will be produced then. But it'll be good. It'll be good for those of us who have a Trezor and who do not rely on staking to acquire more crypto. We get it ourselves. We put it on our Trezor, and if we want more crypto, then we figure out a way to split the forks, the crypto dividends off of at our Trezor or other storage device or whatever. And that's why I was shaking my head beforehand when we were talking about staking. And you were saying there's no yields in bonds anymore, and people have to go in this direction. If people just took a little bit of time to research, and they can get dividends on their Bitcoin, they can get interest on their Bitcoin. Is it the easiest thing in the world to do, to split off the fork, and get some of these forks that'll come in the future? No, it's not the easiest thing in the world, but it's a lot safer than saying, hey, centralized authority, hold my coin for me and give me some staking coins from it, and report all my earnings to the Internal Revenue Service. I mean, that's what you're signing up with that. So my little take on staking right there versus holding. And obviously a big sign that the bull market maybe is returning is if Trezors and ledgers and all that stuff starts to sell out again. And that's unfortunate you're not invested in Ledger, because there'll be a big bull run on ledgers and Trezors soon enough. I'm pretty sure. So, all right, Simon. Well, I think we've reached the end here. Any final thoughts? Any conclusionary thoughts?
I think we've covered it all. There's just never a dull moment in crypto. I'm looking forward to seeing some of the views. I know that when I've been, it's been pretty quiet in crypto with a lot of people building. I'm excited by Liquid as well. That's another thing that we've been looking at. We've been doing a bit of playing around with Liquid, but I think you're going to see a lot of tokens coming over to Bitcoin soon. And it'll be interesting to see where all that goes. But yeah, I guess we're still, the Lightning stuff has been a little bit slower than I'd like it to be. The user experience is still far away from anything that's usable, but there's such a tremendous amount of energy behind it. It's really interesting to see. But then you've got Bitcoin, Liquid, Lightning, all these things coming through, and there's a real playground of innovation for people that want to be building things that no one else is really thinking about at the moment.
I'm glad you brought up Liquid. I'm glad you brought, because the last couple of days I've been hearing things about that again, and people have forgotten about it. And hey, maybe that's part of the spike. Who knows? That we should keep our eye on that, and maybe next time there'll be big reveals about that next time you come on the show, which I very much look forward to. So everyone, that was Simon Dixon. He's awesome. He rocks. He'll be back on the show again. Check out the archives if you want to see some of the past shows he's been on too. DisruptMeister.com. All right, every week a new show here. Every Friday, every day a new show. So keep on tuning in. DisruptMeister.com. Follow me on Twitter at TechBalt, TechBalt. I'm Adam Meister, the Bitcoin Meister, Disrupt Meister. Pound that like button. Bang that bell button. Shabbat Shalom. I will see you guys when I'm in Los Angeles tomorrow. Bye-bye, everyone. See ya.